Whoa, that's a lot. Hey everyone, I'm Abbey Sharp. Welcome to Abby's Kitchen. In today's video, we'll be reviewing health and fitness creator Jazmin Tyler. So you can pause the screen or look at the description to check out my disclaimer, including a trigger warning to those with current or previous experiences with disordered eating. I will be talking macros and calories, so feel free to skip that portion if it isn't supportive to your journey. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and ring that little bell so that you never miss out on an episode. So first, a little 411 on Jazmin, or Jazz. So she is a 19-year-old content creator originally from California, although she currently lives in Los Cabos, Mexico with her family. She's also in her third year of school at UC Berkeley, which she is doing online right now, of course, due to COVID. So Jazz has gained a lot of popularity on both YouTube and TikTok for her videos that are primarily centered around healthy eating, fitness, recipe ideas, and recreating other popular creators' What I Eat in a Day videos. She's also come heavily requested from you guys because she does talk a lot about intuitive eating, as well as her history with disordered eating and amenorrhea. So today we're going to be looking at our most recent What I Eat in a Week video at the time of me filming this, as well as discussing some of the general themes that I saw on her channel. All right, let's take a look, starting with her breakfast for the week. So for breakfast, Jazmin usually rotates between a cookie dough smoothie bowl or a blueberry smoothie bowl, both of which are always topped with her homemade brownie granola, which looks awesome, and each sound equally delicious. So let's take a little peek.
This one is my cookie dough nice cream, and then you'll see my other favorite, which is blueberry nice cream next. Of course, I loaded it up with the fresh brownie granola, and I also added raspberries, which gave me fancy vibes.
Oh, so both of these kind of like nice cream smoothie bowls start with a base of 2 bananas, peanut or almond butter, and some almond milk. And she throws in some cacao nibs for the cookie dough one and blueberries for the blueberry one. I love that she also tops her smoothie bowls, her kind of nice cream with granola, which makes for a more satisfying sit-down meal versus something that could be just like chugged back on the go like a smoothie in a glass. I love smoothie bowls, and hers definitely sounds really great. So we've got carbs from the banana and healthy fats and fiber in the nut butter. I mean, I would probably look to get a little bit more protein since a spoonful of nut butter only provides around 4 grams. So for example, she could throw in a higher protein milk like soy instead of almond, add some Greek yogurt if she did dairy, add a scoop of protein powder, or some silken tofu, which is totally my favorite hack right now. Oh, silken tofu makes the smoothest smoothies ever. Even my toddler is totally obsessed. But anyway, on days she doesn't have a smoothie bowl, Jazmin opts for a classic avocado toast and eggs, plus some sauteed kale or spinach for some micronutrient action. So let's take a look.
For breakfast, I made eggs and avocado toast, and I loaded the eggs with turmeric, which is anti-inflammatory, immune boosting, and it just has lots of great flavor. I served it with a side of steamed spinach.
This is already a textbook balanced meal, even if we are all kind of sick seeing it on YouTube and Instagram. But it is a solid spread with healthy fats in the avocado, fiber-rich carbs in the bread and veg, plus some protein and fats in the eggs. Love me some sweet and savory options, depending on the breakfast mood. Now, moving on to lunch, Jazmin likes to mix it up, but most often goes for either leftovers from her dinner from the night before, or a big bean and rice burrito with either some steamed veg or salad on the side. Let's take a look.
Then you know it was time to make a giant vegan burrito because that's one of my favorite meals. Just beans, corn, rice, veggies, and sweet potato on an Ezekiel tortilla.
This is totally how I build burritos as well. My eyes are often way bigger than, well, the wrap. But anyways, hers looks awesome. So we've got some fiber-rich carbs from the brown rice, beans, corns, Ezekiel tortilla. We got some protein in the beans and healthy fats in the guac. Now, as a generic recommendation for most people who have a hard time getting in their veg, I actually think burritos in general are a really great way to sneak in some extra veggies in there. I also would say I've never actually seen an Ezekiel tortilla before, but I'm here for it. So Ezekiel grains have become more popular as of late because they're made from a variety of sprouted whole grains, including wheat, barley, millet, spelt, soybeans, and lentils. So sprouted bread not only means that there are more nutrients because the seeds have started to germinate, but that those nutrients are also more bioavailable. And speaking of veg, on non-burrito days, she goes for a full loaded veggie salad with lots of fiber from the greens, strawberries, sweet potato, corn, and cabbage, protein from some chickpeas and nutritional yeast, and healthy fats in the olive oil dressing and olives. I know when I'm vacationing somewhere really hot, I literally crave salads every single day. I often can't bring myself to have a hot meal in the sun or even eat a lot of protein or heavy carbs. But I will say that it's definitely a lot of vegetables. I would probably not feel so good in the gut, but if this works for Jazz and it's not displacing other important nutrients and foods throughout the day, then of course this works for me. I'm just pointing this out because I know a lot of my friends watching who are just trying to start liking vegetables might see this and think that they could never eat well if eating well means having to eat this many vegetables. And that's just not true. Everyone's veggie and fiber tolerance is so different. So if you're just starting out, do not be discouraged. Even just adding a little bit of produce to every meal is a really great place to start. All right, moving on to her dinners. So Jazmin's dinners appear to be the meal that she'll opt to have a little bit of meat or fish, as she does state in her video that while she enjoys eating mostly plant-based, she does crave meat from time to time. And this is also how I eat most of the time as well. So I prefer mainly vegetarian foods, but I'm also not comfortable labeling myself or my diet any specific way that may discourage me from honoring those occasional desires for meat. Honestly, I think that if I did tell myself that I was vegan, I would probably just want to eat meat more.
On April 4th, 7:30 p.m., you partook a plate of chicken parmesan.
And I get that that is just my experience with food, likely grounded in a history of restriction, and that a lot of ethical vegans out there do not see meat even as food, so this would never feel restrictive to them. But anyways, I'm just kind of going off on a tangent here when all I'm trying to say is that I appreciate that Jazz has found a flexible and sustainable way of eating that ultimately feels good to her. I also want to share what she says about meal planning.
As you can see from this week, when I don't know what to eat, I just eat a source of protein with rice and vegetables. It makes getting a balanced meal in so much easier, and if you make the protein fancy, it's super flavorful and delicious.
Guys, I love this. Friends who are avid Abby's Kitchen followers know that she is talking about the hunger-crushing combination here, folks. So, even if you don't know what to make, meals do not need to be complicated or fussy when you just keep that little checklist of fiber-rich carbs, protein, and fat in mind. So for Jazz, that typically means that most nights she's got some form of meat or fish. She's got some carbs in the brown rice or sometimes potatoes, and then a ton of steamed vegetables and or salad. So let's take a look at an example.
It had a couple eggs, some flour, lots of spices, garlic, tomato sauce, and fresh rainbow chard from that box of veggies that we had delivered. When I don't know what to eat, I just eat a source of protein with rice and vegetables.
This looks so good and inherently very well balanced. So we've got some protein and fat in the meatloaf, we've got some carbs in our rice, and some fiber-rich veg. Now, other nights, Jazz is flexible and she decides to order food in with her family, and I'm so relieved to see that she can approach these experiences without anxiety or guilt. Let's take a look.
All the kebabs there are? I don't know how many pancakes, probably 10.
Probably I don't know, dude.
No, dude, he shared a full recipe.
You can do the short stories of Hemingway.
We're gonna watch Avengers?
After a shower and
Jacuzzi?
Yes, so it looks like they ordered in some kind of Mediterranean Greek style meal, and that is one of my go-to takeout options as well. So she's getting lots of protein and fat from the steak here and hummus, plus some fiber in the veg. Now this is slightly a lower carb meal, but I would say in the context of her day where she's having, a rice and veggie curry for lunch and a smoothie bowl with granola at breakfast, totally makes sense to me. Finally, let's talk about my favorite food category, snacks. So there are only a few days in the week that Jazmin incorporates snacks into her days, but on both of those days, they look absolutely delicious. So one day Jazmin makes a coconut pancake recipe and has a few of them for a snack. And on the other day, she recreates another creator's chocolate avocado pudding recipe that includes avocado, dates, and cacao powder. So let's take a look.
Then I did an Instagram collaboration with one of my favorite models named Julia Muniz, and she made one of my recipes and I made one of hers. I chose to make her 5-ingredient brigadeiro, which is a chocolate mousse that's typical in Brazil. The main ingredients were avocado and dates.
This is awesome. And actually, it's a snack that I have made for my family a bunch of times as well. I actually used the chocolate mousse as like a filling for a buckwheat breakfast crepe, and it is so effing good. But I love that we have some fiber and fat in the avocado and carbs in the dates in this pudding. And the pancakes also look super delicious, and it's also kind of nice to see just like a normal pancake recipe for once, you know, like they don't always have to be protein pancakes or vegan pancakes or made with some kind of almond or coconut flour. So this recipe is actually called Cheat Day Pancakes, but not by Jazmin, by The Rock, who developed the recipe. So I really appreciate that she's just able to work the cheat day pancakes into a normal day. Flour, sugar, butter, and all. And it doesn't turn a normal day into a cheat day. So not only do these snacks look and sound amazing, but they also really help her reach her calorie goals on both of the days that she incorporates a snack in addition to her meals. And speaking of calories, let's talk about snacks and a trigger warning to anyone who might find the discussion of calories and macros to be triggering. You can skip ahead to the timestamp on the screen when the section is over. So based on my calculations taken from an average of the 7 days of her video, Jazmin's average caloric intake is around 1,800 calories, with 1,487 calories being consumed on her lowest day and 2,108 calories on her highest. She also consumes a higher carb diet composed of roughly 65% carbs, 19% protein, and 16% fat, which definitely falls in the higher carb, moderate protein, lower fat range. Honestly, I know people like to get hung up on macros, but everyone has a unique ratio where they feel best. There really isn't a one-size-fits-all situation. Having said that, in this case, I would say that her fat intake is a little lower than I would want it to be, seeing as most women need at least 20% of calories from fat, but I will speak more to that momentarily. So let's start by talking about what I really like here. First of all, I think Jazmin's diet is bright, colorful, and obviously very nutritious. She eats a wide variety of fruits, veggies, grains, and protein, and the meals she makes are definitely delicious looking and also relatively easy and accessible to pull off. She doesn't seem to be cutting out full food groups or talking about foods as good or bad. And I also really appreciate that even if she prefers to eat mainly plant-based, she's flexible to enjoy the odd bit of meat if that is what she craves or if that's what is available to her. She doesn't make it a big moral dilemma. You know, she honors that preference and moves on. Now let's talk about some gentle nutrition tips that might help Jazmin meet her nutrient needs. So according to my calculations, and obviously this is rough, but I would say that Jazmin needs at least 2,000 to 2,200 calories. And that's being conservatively low, considering that she's normally very active. She did mention that she's taking a break from some forms of intense exercise right now, so like her HIIT training, due to a knee injury. But almost daily, there is some form of activity like yoga, Pilates, surfing, etc. So while there are days that she is likely meeting her needs, particularly when she's got a snack in there are others when she's definitely coming up short. And it's normal to see that kind of flexibility, but of course, we want to make sure that it doesn't create a massive caloric deficit. Now, just based on how Jazmin talks about food, I don't think she's intentionally under-eating, but a lot of the foods that she is eating, while super healthy and nutritious, are just naturally not very energy dense. They're low in fat and high in fiber and water, which may be really helpful for someone who's trying to actively lose weight, but may make it challenging to meet your nutrient needs when you're not. This is particularly relevant to Jazmin since she is such an active young woman with a history of disordered eating and also of hypothalamic amenorrhea. In fact, she even mentioned in one video that her knee injury was likely a result of overexercising and undereating. This is a super common outcome of undereating, with research suggesting that adolescents with amenorrhea who diet but who don't necessarily meet the diagnostic criteria for anorexia nervosa are still at significant risk for low bone density and osteoporosis. Anyways, as I mentioned earlier, Jazmin was able to achieve her caloric needs a lot more easily on the days that she incorporated a snack, in addition to, of course, her 3 meals. So I would probably suggest being consistent with that snack as often as humanly possible, just to really make sure that she's eating enough so that she can continue to do all of the activities that she loves. I would also say that if she was having a hard time meeting her caloric needs while still honoring her hunger, I would probably focus on more nutrient-dense, fat-rich foods like more avocado, oils, seeds, and nut butters, and to downplay the produce in her life, just a titch. So that way she could, get those calories in before she feels too full. Lastly, let's touch on Jazmin's relationship with food. So first of all, I have to commend Jazmin on how far she's obviously come in her recovery journey. Jazmin describes having struggled on and off with an eating disorder since she was about 14 years old. And as a result, she lost her period not once, but twice. Now at 19, she's really trying to focus on fueling her body, taking rest days when she needs them, and practicing intuitive eating. So that is a huge accomplishment for Jazmin. And I have no doubt that it was not easy to get through. I also appreciate that she's typically an ally in debunking a lot of wellness BS. In her Q&A video discussing her fitness journey and her relationship with exercise, Jazz says this.
You're only gonna get abs if you can lower the body fat on your stomach, and there's no way to spot reduce fat. No exercise is gonna cause targeted fat loss in a specific area. You can't decide where to lose that fat because scientifically our bodies don't work like that. Gotta focus on fat loss, eating in a caloric deficit.
So this whole idea that you can spot reduce belly fat really needs to die. Can you accomplish this with lipo? Yeah, but there is no magical cocktail of foods and exercises that will sculpt your body to look like Kim K's. Ultimately, how and where you lose weight just comes down to general weight and fat loss, like she says, hormones, age, sex, and also your genetics. I also want to comment on this.
So yeah, I would say that there's no right reason to start a healthy lifestyle because of course wanting to look a certain way is totally fine, you do you, but just know that how you feel is so much more important than looking a certain way.
Whether you're looking to improve your health status, fitness, energy, or just look a certain way, I think all intentions for making changes to your lifestyle are valid and of course should be respected. Jazz also addresses the topic of cheat days, so let's take a look.
And as for cheat days, I don't really like that term because it kind of implies like a negative connotation because like cheating, that sounds bad. But when it comes to a healthy lifestyle, you shouldn't see treating yourself as cheat days. That's why I like to think of it as like a treat day.
Okay, so Jazmin thinks the idea of cheating has a negative connotation, so she prefers the term treat day instead. And while I think we can probably do without the need to make any one day a full out treat fest, I think treat is a more positive step in the right direction, I guess. Having said that, it still gives power to said treat foods. In my house, we actually banned the word treat. No one says it. And I think my son actually finally forgot about the word as well. We just call the foods what they are, right? Like cookies and popsicles or chocolate or whatever. I guess to me, I just don't want him to put the sweet foods on a pedestal and see them as something that he needs to obsess over and hold out for. No! But bottom line, in my opinion, if we really want to move towards food freedom, we don't want to just change our language, we also need to change our mentality. And that may mean stepping outside of these arbitrary rules of when you can have a treat so that we don't need to pack them all into one epic day of eating just to go back to eating clean the next day. I'm not suggesting Jazmin is necessarily doing this. She seems pretty consistent in her patterns, but this is typically what we see with the whole cheat day mentality. So these are things that I generally agree with Jazz on, but I also want to unpack a few of her other statements in the context of her relationship with food. So first, Jazmin says that she tries to eat healthy 95% of the time, meaning no added sugar or processed food, and that she treats herself 5% of the time. So this is the whole treat day, cheat day situation. While this might work fine for her, I would say that this ratio is probably unrealistic and also difficult to maintain for most folks out there just trying to keep a healthy diet. Also, as a dietitian, I would strongly advise against leaning on any of these pseudo guidelines, which are basically just sugar-coated rules. Not to mention, 95% healthy eating and avoiding any processed foods or added sugar feels like a pretty strict rule to me, especially for somebody in or recently out of recovery. We also don't need to demonize processed foods here. I mean, don't forget that a lot of the nutritional benefits and food safety in our food system comes from food processing. We wouldn't have pasteurized milk or yogurt, frozen produce, protein powder, or any of your vegan non-dairy alternatives without food processing. So I would just love to see influencers stop the fear-mongering around all processed food. Processed foods can be really healthy options, and even ultra-processed foods are fine in moderation. I also want to unpack a few of Jazmin's statements about intuitive eating. Let's take a look.
When it comes to losing weight, you gotta eat in a caloric deficit. Try tracking your meals and your calories for just 2 to 3 days so you can see what portions work for you. Based on those portions, try eating intuitively, which is basically where you just listen to your hunger cues and listen to your body. You'll definitely get the hang of it, and basically it's all about the portions you eat.
Okay, so basically she's suggesting that you track your calories and macros for a few days before transitioning into intuitive eating so that you know how much you should be eating. So I see a lot of influencers talking about intuitive eating like it's something that you can do only once you've dieted or restricted long enough to kind of train your brain in such a way to maintain such diet or way of eating intuitively. I'm not suggesting that this is exactly what Jazz is saying, but it is a common sentiment, so I thought a lot about this over the past few months. First of all, I used to be really annoyed by influencers co-opting the term intuitive eating to basically become solely synonymous with the hunger fullness diet. Everyone just focuses on the idea that intuitive eating is just eat when you're hungry, stop when you're full. But I know now that intuitive eating is kind of a higher level concept, so I don't blame anyone for not fully understanding it in all of its nuanced ways. Intuitive eating is actually a mind-body framework that just isn't compatible with portion control or calorie counting as it was originally conceptualized. I know this is just semantics, but I point it out because if intuitive eating is being celebrated as the ultimate state of food freedom, kicking off your journey with caloric tracking or portion control isn't going to get you there necessarily. This is only really creating a template that you can safely stay within, and as long as you're not hungry, you think that you're free. But this framework still lacks flexibility. I want to reiterate that I don't think intuitive eating in its entirety is for everyone. A lot of us do need structure, and that is totally fine. So that might mean learning a bit about different macros and how they make you feel and perform. It might mean reading some nutrition labels to see where sources of added sugar or salt or saturated fat lies in your favorite foods, and then making choices of how often you want to include said foods. And I also think that there's room for looking at your portions too, and even in a way that is fully compatible with intuitive eating. So for example, maybe you want to see how a bowl of cereal holds you in terms of your fullness. So you measure out a cup of Cheerios and see how that goes. Well, it turns out that you discover a cup of Cheerios maybe isn't enough for you. So the next day, you'll know you need about a cup and a half, or maybe you need to pair it with an egg. Or it could be the opposite, and you want to ensure that you're not just wasting food day after day after day. So maybe you put a half a cup of rice on your plate and you see how that feels before you add more. And this is just data. So over time, once you've collected enough data on the approximate amounts of food needed to satisfy you in different scenarios, you can more accurately and appropriately serve yourself your food. The key to keeping this compatible with intuitive eating is that A, your personalized data is informing said portion, not some external diet rule. B, there is no moral association with the portions, so you don't feel shame if you need to have more than you think you should have. And C, you allow yourself to have more or less food completely guilt-free as needed, knowing that even though a cup of oatmeal is maybe usually enough to get you through to lunch, some days you might also just need a snack. So hopefully that clarifies how we can actually use things like portion knowledge and still work towards having an intuitive relationship with food. So in conclusion, I really like Jazmin's channel and her general message that healthy eating and exercising is supposed to feel good. She seems to have made significant progress in her outlook on food and her body, and I'm hopeful that she can continue to enhance her food flexibility and food freedom to find a way of eating that she can really maintain long term. And that is it for today's video, folks. If you liked it, be sure to give it the thumbs up. Leave me a comment below on who you'd like to see me review next. Subscribe to the channel. I will see you next time on Abby's Kitchen. Bye. And for more great videos like this, check out the link right here.